Listening Library presents Stranger Things, Runaway Max by Brenna Yovanoff. Read for you by Sophie Amoss. Prologue. The floor of the San Diego bus station was mostly cigarette butts. A million years ago, the building had probably been fancy, like Grand Central or those huge places you see in movies. But now it just looked gray all over, like a warehouse full of crumpled band flyers and winos. It was almost midnight, but the lobby was crowded. Next to me, a wall of storage lockers ran all the way down to the end. One of the lockers was leaking a little, like something had spilled inside, and was dripping out onto the floor. It was sticking to my shoes. There were vending machines on the other side of the lobby, and there was a bar over in the corner, where a bunch of skinny, stubbly men sat smoking into ashtrays, hunched over their beers like goblins. The smoke made the air look hazy and weird. I hurried along, close to the lockers, keeping my chin down and trying not to look obvious. Back at my house, when I had imagined this scene, I'd been pretty sure I'd be able to blend into the crowd. No problem. But now that I was here, it was harder than I had pictured. I'd been counting on the chaos and the size to cover me. It was a bus station, after all. I didn't figure I'd be the only one here who was still too young to drive. On my street or at school, I was easy to overlook. 12 years old and average height, average shape and face and clothes. Average everything, except for my hair, which was long and red and the brightest thing about me. I yanked it into a ponytail and tried to walk like I knew where I was going. I should have brought a hat. Over at the ticket windows, a couple of older girls in green eyeshadow and rubber miniskirts were arguing with the guy behind the glass. Their hair was teased up so high, it looked like cotton candy. "Come on, man," said one of them. She was shaking her purse upside down on the window ledge, counting out quarters. "Can't you cut me a break? I'm barely short. Only $1.50. The guy looked sarcastic and bored in his ratty Hawaiian shirt. "Does this look like a charity? No fare, no ticket." I reached into the pocket of my warm-up jacket and ran my fingers over my own ticket. Economy from San Diego to LA. I'd paid for it with a 20 from my mom's jewelry box, and the guy had barely looked at me. I walked faster, sticking close to the wall with my skateboard under my arm. For a second, I thought how badass it would be to set it down and go zooming between the benches. But I didn't. One wrong move, and even a bunch of late-night dirtbags were going to notice I wasn't supposed to be here. I was almost to the end of the lobby when a nervous ripple went through the crowd behind me. I turned around. Two guys in tan uniforms were standing by the vending machines, looking out over the sea of faces. Even from across the station, I could catch the glint of their badges. Cops. The tall one had fast, pale eyes and long, skinny arms like a spider. He was pacing up and down between the benches in that way cops always do. It's a slow, official walk that says, I might be a creepy string bean, but I'm the one with the badge and the gun. It reminded me of my stepdad. If I could get to the end of the lobby, I could slip out to the depot where the buses pulled up. I'd slide into the crowd and disappear. The scuzzy guys at the bar hunched lower over their beers. One of them mashed out his cigarette, then gave the cops a long, nasty stare and spit on the floor between his feet. The girls at the ticket window had stopped arguing with the cashier. They were acting really interested in their press-on nails, but looked plenty nervous about Officer Stringbean. Maybe they had the same kind of stepdads I did. The cops waded out into the middle of the lobby and were squinting around the bus station like they were looking for something. A lost kid, maybe. A bunch of delinquents up to no good. Or a runaway. I ducked my head and got ready to blend in. I was just about to step out into the terminal when someone cleared his throat, and a big, heavy hand closed around my arm. I turned and looked up into the looming face of a third cop. He smiled a bored, flat smile, all teeth. "Maxine Mayfield, I'm going to need you to come with me." His face was hard and craggy, and he looked like he had said the same thing to different kids about 100 times. "You've got people at home worried sick about you." Chapter 1. The sky was so low it seemed to be sitting right on top of downtown Hawkins. The world whipped past me as I clattered along the sidewalk. I skated faster, listening to the wheels whispering on concrete, then thudding over the cracks. It was a chilly afternoon, and the cold made my ears hurt. It had been chilly every day since we had rolled into town 3 days ago. I kept looking up, expecting to see the bright sky of San Diego. But here, everything was pale and gray, and even when it wasn't overcast, the sky looked colorless. Hawkins, Indiana. Home of low gray clouds and quilted jackets and winter. Home of me. Main Street was all tricked out for Halloween, with storefronts full of grinning pumpkins. Fake spiderwebs and paper skeletons were taped in the windows of the supermarket. All down the block, lampposts were wrapped in black and orange streamers fluttering in the wind. I'd spent the afternoon at the Palace Arcade, playing Dig Dug, until I ran out of quarters. Because my mom didn't like me wasting money on video games, back home in California, I'd mostly only gotten to play when I'd been with my dad. He'd take me to the bowling alley with him, or sometimes the laundry, which had Pac-Man and Galaga. And I sometimes hung out at the Joytown Arcade at the mall, even though it was a total rip-off and full of metalheads in ratty jeans and leather jackets. They had pole position, though, which was better than any other racing game, and had a steering wheel, like you were actually driving. The arcade in Hawkins was a big, low-roofed building with neon signs in the windows and a bright yellow awning, but under the colored lights and the paint, it was just aluminum siding. They had Dragon's Lair and Donkey Kong and Dig Dug, which was my best game. I'd been hanging out there all afternoon, running up the score on Dig Dug, but after I entered my name in the #1 spot, and I didn't have any more quarters, I started to feel antsy, like I needed to move. So I left the arcade and skated downtown to take a tour of Hawkins. I pushed myself faster, rattling past a diner and a hardware store, a Radio Shack, a movie theater. The theater was small, like it might only have one screen, but the front was glitzy and old-fashioned, with a big marquee that stuck out like a battleship covered in lights. The only time I really liked to sit still was at the movies. The newest poster out front was for The Terminator, but I'd already seen it. The story was pretty good. This killer robot who looks like Arnold Schwarzenegger travels back in time from the future to kill this waitress named Sarah Connor. At first, she just seems kind of normal, but she turns out to be a total badass. I liked it, even though it wasn't a real monster movie, but something about it also made me feel weirdly disappointed. None of the women I knew were anything like Sarah Connor. I was zipping past the pawn shop now, past a furniture store, past a pizza place, with a red and green striped awning, when something small and dark darted across the sidewalk in front of me. In the gray afternoon light, it looked like a cat, and I just had time to think how weird that was, how you'd never see a cat in downtown San Diego before my feet went out from under me. I was used to wiping out, but still, that split second of a fall was always disorienting. When I lost my balance, it felt like the whole world had flipped over and skidded out from under me. I hit the ground so hard, I felt the thump in my teeth. I had been skating since forever, since my best friend Nate Walker and his brother Silas took a trip to Venice Beach with their parents when we were in the 3rd grade and came back all jazzed up on stories about the Z-Boys and the skate shops in Dogtown. I'd been skating since the day I found out about grip tape and Madrid boards